Chair, make a motion that we exit executive session.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Do we need a motion on case number? Yep. Mr. Chair, on case number 201901114 and 2020040, I make a motion that we accept the offer as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 The next case that I have for you is case number 2022-0074. It is an application for cremation expenses submitted through Wilkes Funeral Home in the amount of $1,200. All of the information was submitted through the funeral home or through the state's website. The deceased is a 70-year-old female who lived by herself. She is a Bannock County resident, not a veteran. With the information that we did obtain, it does appear that the applicant does meet criteria to be eligible for services through the indigent program, and there is no responsible party available for repayment of this request.
Mr. Chair, on case 202-20074, I make a motion that we approve as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Don't know how to sign that. After that, salary approval forms.
Yeah.
Have
what?
different name on.
400 of them?
All right, Mayor England, welcome.
Well, it's good to be here. I'm up, huh?
You're up.
Good deal. Well, first, little solemn bit of business. We had a longtime employee and a good friend of mine who's been battling cancer since last year, and he passed away yesterday afternoon.
Sorry.
Bill Gwynn. Good man. Great employee. We sure hated to see him go both ways, but I had the opportunity to visit with him several times over the last couple of months. Visited with him just last week. And in Bill's own way, he lifted everybody that came to lift him. That's just who he was. Going to be missed. Just thought I'd mention that. Also, an acknowledgement of Constitution Week. I'm a proponent that we need to spend more time on the 17th of September acknowledging what that means, as we do on the 4th of July, acknowledging our independence. So if I could just quickly read the preamble of our Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, who ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. It's a document I think we take for granted way too often. I think we all know that it's in peril often, because there are many who should know better, who disregard what this Constitution is, but it is one of the shortest constitutions ever written. It's also the longest standing constitution, and there are many constitutions throughout the world that have been modeled and patterned after this Constitution. And those of us who know and love it have every responsibility to stand for it. I had the opportunity to talk to a group of youth during this last week about the Constitution and Constitution Week, and I just did challenge them to make sure they're reading the Constitution. It's not hard to read. There's this general overall thought out there that you got to be some kind of constitutional scholar to understand the Constitution. It could be further from the truth. It was written by we the people, it was written for we the people, and it belongs to us. I've even been one that stands and says when people say that the Supreme Court's the final arbitrator, no, they're not. They decide if things are constitutional or not, but we are the final arbitrator of the Constitution. So I love it with all my heart, and I would encourage all of us to make sure that we understand it, that we know what it means to be constitutional and what it means to be unconstitutional, and that we live under that Constitution. It has provided freedoms for many and provided opportunities for literally millions. A little lighter note, I had an acquaintance, I'd like to say he was a friend, but we weren't too friendly all the time, but we were acquaintances in high school, and he was pretty full of himself, and he thought he was pretty much everything there was. And when I heard who he was going to marry, I was a little surprised, because she's a great gal, but what I have found out since is that she has really helped bring him down a notch or two. And these are two things that happened with them. Shortly after they were married, they were walking in a park. It was a fairly busy day, a lot of people in the park, and as they went by a group of young girls, he turned to her and said, "Did you see how they smiled at me?" She said, "That's nothing. Well, that's the first time I saw you, I burst right out laughing." Brought him down its opportunity. And then one day he said, you know, you got to admit, I'm the model husband. She said, that's true, if you remember what a model is. It's a small replica of the real thing. I was glad to see that she was helping him understand what his purpose was in life. I think I'd just like to start out, see if you have any questions for me. Commission, is there anything in particular that you'd like to hear? I've got a couple things I can talk to you about, but not a whole lot. Things haven't changed a bunch, but anything in particular that you'd like to ask?
How's the interstate detour treating Chubbuck?
You know, really well, a lot better than I thought that it was going to. It seems to be up and running very well. If there have been challenges, I have not been made aware of it, so I would assume there are not, because I'm usually one of the first to be made aware of when those things happen.
There's one challenge. It's not really with Chubbuck though.
Okay?
It's when these windmill blades come through.
Oh, yeah.
And it blocks traffic from North Gate all the way back to Pocatello Creek.
No doubt about it. And I
My
think
wife sit for 8 lights
oh, my goodness.
to get off the interstate, with 2 of them going through the other morning to go to work.
That's a toughie. We had 2 or 3 meetings with ITD. First thing I asked them is that they really needed to keep Chubbuck Road closed all this time, and apparently they feel they do. They closed it a full month before they actually started the work, which really kind of irritated me. But you know, there's 2 groups that aren't going to work with you real well. ITD's one, and the other's a railroad. And I've been working with both of them for the last 2 years. It can be frustrating if you don't just realize that it's going to be what it's going to be. As you come over and look at our new day where we finished, it's not finished because the railroad wouldn't work with us. For 2 years we've worked with them to try to get that crossing ready to go. We're hoping they'll be ready next year.
I heard last night that they seem to soften up a little bit and come forward with some thoughts with Devin. So
the last individual that they put over the project seems to be much more workable and viable and understanding of where we are. Now, why they didn't put him in charge 2 years ago, see, that's the challenge. When they closed Chubbuck Road down, New Day wasn't ready to open yet. It was supposed to be, but everybody knows supply chain and getting people on the job to actually do the work has just slowed everything down. And so that became a bit of a challenge, no doubt about it. But again, we were going to do it last year so we could make sure this didn't have anything to do with all of this other. They just wouldn't work with us. But they pretty much guaranteed us they'd have it ready for this year. They didn't. So now we've got our fingers crossed hoping the next year can get finished.
yeah, Devin was very hopeful last night after talking with him about that. So that was good to hear.
Anything else?
Just been a long time since we've talked.
It has been a long time, yeah. I came over once, and as a matter of fact, like I say, it's really funny because my calendar puts these things on for that regular basis, and when I came over, I immediately got a call, "Boy, we sorry, we saw you on there. We didn't get you on the agenda." I said, "You don't need to worry about that." I said, "You know, free time out of the office is never anything I complain about. You know, 20 minutes here and 20 minutes there to think about things." So it was fine. So it has been a while, and it's grateful to be here to update you. Let me just talk to you about a couple things. One is I'm sure you're in the same boat that we are. Retention of employees and hiring employees, 2 big challenges. We've been told for several years that INL was going to have this silver tsunami where all those people out there were going to retire in the next 5 years, and that was 5 years ago, and it's starting to happen. We can't meet their wages. I think we got a better place to work, and I think we got a better environment, but when it comes down to dollars, we just can't beat that. And so we've lost a few out there, and then replacing them has become quite a challenge. You all know what our good economy did to us this year, and as far as trying to keep pay whole, I remember as I looked at it, at the very least we like to do is make sure we're keeping up with inflation so people are at least making the same amount they did last year. Well, this year that would have been a 7% raise. That's pretty difficult to do out of the budgets that we have, even though at the state level they talk about how we got deep pockets and all the money in the world. We know better. It's just not there. And so, but along that line, I'd just like to say a couple things. I'm tickled about the kind of commitment I see from people who work for the community organizations in this area. There's people, there's no doubt in my mind when I experience them, the skill level they have, that they could work just about anywhere they wanted to. And it's just neat to see they have a commitment to help our community be a better community. And I think that needs to be acknowledged more often. we have a tendency to hear all of the naysayers talk about how we're not doing things right. We're going through too much money, and they need to understand that there are people who truly, with a bit of personal sacrifice, are doing the right thing for our community. So I'm just grateful for them, and we certainly have a lot of those kind of people who I know full well. If it was just about money, they would be here. So, but the hiring challenge continues. I think we're about 10 to 12 positions down, not able to find any replacements at this point. As a matter of fact, I noticed that my HR and a couple of people were doing some interviewing as I left the office today. The Olive Garden's moving along. Everybody's getting excited. My wife was hoping I could take her there for her birthday, and I said, well, it was the 9th of September. I said I could, but we just have to set up a table and I have to order in. So. But it's, I got a call from the Journal the other day wanting an update, and I said, what makes you think I have an update? I said, they don't talk to me every day. I go down and ask them how they're doing, but I said, you know, they're a business, and my guess is they're trying to get up and running as quick as they can. And I think they probably are. I think you all know what's happened with Allstate. It's not the bad news that people are trying to say it is. They are going to maintain their employees. They haven't gone down any employees at all. As a matter of fact, they tell me they'll be hiring some more. They just don't need the building anymore. COVID taught them that people could work out of their homes. They didn't need to have that big building. And so to me, I see it as two positives. I see it as the opportunity to have the folks who are working for those and those who would like to work for them. And they truly do have career paths for folks if they want to come on and make some really good money. That's still available to anybody, but the building's going to be available for another use. And we have some good people working hard to find the right kind of use for that building. So what at first seems like kind of a negative is not. It truly is a positive in all ways. We've had several developers come in and talk to me recently, showing some really good interest. I think, you know, our downtown is a place that I have the attitude I want it to happen right, and if it can't happen fast, it's still got to happen right. I do have a couple people who talked to me and said they think it can happen quite quickly. And I said, well, that's okay as long as it happens right. We're not going to drop the standard we put in order to see it happen. And it's good to see some of the folks that have come in. Matter of fact, I had a couple in my office yesterday, and very complimentary to the community in general, but to Chubbuck, he just talked about how it had been good working with them, that all their questions had been answered. He did have two challenges, and he says, I'm not complaining, I'm just bringing them up because we do business all over the Intermountain West, and these are things you ought to look at. I was appreciative of that, because it would have been easy for him just to say, well, we're going to ride this wave, but he said, you know, here's some areas that I think you could look at and maybe make business a little easier. And I think that's something we all need to be working at. There's no reason for folks who want to come and be part of us. If they're willing to kind of mark our standard, we should want them to be here. We shouldn't do things to have a difficult time. I don't know what your experience is, probably the same as mine with IT. I mean, number one, it's a changing field. As a matter of fact, I noticed in the funny paper this morning, it said, here's the newest, best phone. And he said, I thought I just got the newest, best phone. So I thought you knew when you walked out that was the old phone. And that's pretty much the way IT is. You can get the newest and the best, and tomorrow they're going to have something else. We've had a bit of a challenge with that because we're just at that. We're not big enough to really need an IT department. We're small enough to understand what the nature of the thing is, but I've tried two different ways since I've been the mayor, and we're going back to try to probably contracting. And the reason we're going to do that, I look at Pocatello, and they've got 5 or 6 people in their IT department. What that does is it gives you the potential to have a lot of different expertise. You just have a 1 or 2 man show, and they're obviously not going to know a lot of things. And I've told them, as soon as we hired our first IT guy, I just said, I understand that. And when you need help, make sure you're reaching out for help. We can get somebody to come in and contract and help. That's kind of tough for IT people, at least this IT person. He didn't want to acknowledge that this was a little bigger than his pay grade. So we've kind of gone back to doing a contract. It brings comfort to me because we used them before, and this time as they've come in, they were very familiar with our system, and they came in with a plan that really works well. So, but again, I think the biggest thing I'm challenged with is the wonderful cable that runs through our communities, and how do we really get access to everybody? Because we've done a good enough job that the state and federal government consider us to be fully served. We know we're not. We know we have spots and areas that are not fully served. because of that, a lot of the funding opportunities that are available at the state and federal level are not available to us because, you know, as a matter of fact, I think it's kind of funny when we realize that we are served quite well. We certainly can't put our hands down and say we're not doing well. The other thing is that we are really, at least Chubbuck, because I'm told this all the time, we do not come close to a poverty level. And so when there's dollars available for that, we just start even in the talk. And so I've told people, you know, we just need to kind of dumb down and quit making so much money, and then we'll be able to do better things. But, you know, it is fun. It's interesting. I think you guys know as well as I do. There are challenges with federal money. There are always strings attached. It always makes me nervous. My first experience with that was while I was on the city council. He had a restroom that went down in one of the parks. So I went over and looked at it and realized this is what we can do. Well, come to find out, that restroom was built with federal dollars, and we couldn't touch it without their approval. I was that close to saying, let's just knock it down and build a new one. You know, this is too much. And so I guess there is part of that. One last thing, as we were over up at Highland, the credit union was going to fancy up their ball field. And I was telling Boss Center, I said, you know, I went to school back here in the early 70s, and this ball field hasn't changed that much since then. So I think it's ready for an upgrade. But a former city council member was there, and he looked at me and said, you know what this community needs right now? And I said, no, what's that? And he said, we need to get a couple more credit unions, then we can build a lot of stuff. And I just want to say thank you to the credit unions and what they are doing. It's just absolutely amazing, the things they're doing to better our community. I look at the Portland Health Trust is in that same ballpark. The things that they do thoughtfully bring things that will really, really bless our community are amazing. Pocatello High School's needed their own field for as long as I can remember, and that's a long time. And to have that, even though they have it over at the middle school there, they've still made that into a home field for them. And I've been over there a couple of times, and it feels really good to have that happen. So I just conclude by saying I appreciate working with you gentlemen. It's you know, we live in a great community, and we have our differences, and that's fine. As a matter of fact, I would be really concerned if we were all marching lockstep. I think I'd be very, very concerned. So it's the idea. I think what brings a lot of the blessing in our community is the fact that there's a lot of different thought happening and different ways to do things. So I just appreciate what you're doing. I think as I certainly have no gripes about our county. I think our county's doing well, and I think Commissioner Moser, you deserve some great accolades for truly reaching out to South County. It's been talked about for a long, long time. It's been happening now and then. And you can see it and you can feel it. I have the opportunity to talk to those mayors fairly regularly, and they feel more included, they feel more part, they feel that they're part, you know, and that's a great thing. When we, as a whole unit, as we start feeling that we really are one cohesive unit, that's a good thing. So I just thank you for that.
Thank you. Some of the things that as you were talking, our 911 system, I think, is come up a long ways from where it was a year ago or so. So we're excited there, and we're excited with the cooperation. First meetings we had, it wasn't that way, and now they've come together as a cohesive group and wanting to do what's good for all of Bannock County. So we're excited there too. Other than that,
where did you guys end up with your budget? I never did see where your final numbers came in at. Do you remember?
That's a hard question now. Our final numbers came in less than we published, but the council took 2% less. I've scolded them that they did the wrong thing. They used some of our fund balance to fund ongoing debt. So, you know, I've told them, I said, that's great when you have a one-time project that you can use that with. We had a couple of our counselors who were looking at our fund balance wrong. They thought that the fund balance was all additional money, and I said, no, that's our operating budget too, you know. And so they thought we had more. And so, like I say, so we came in a little less than was published, but I could remember exactly. I'd tell you, it's around 20 million.
Okay.
And the thing is, we took a lot of heat over that because it did go up a lot from last year, but we were using fund balance. Matter of fact, I told them, I said, people come in here all the time and tell me that we should have a capital plan so that we're ready for things when they come. Well, that's what we're doing this year. We've made a capital plan, and now we're expending those funds. We can't spend them without putting them in the budget. So it looks like we're going up a bunch, but we're not. So, and hey, you know that, that budget change that difficult one at best. I think we're doing well.
Okay, good, thank you. I hadn't heard what the final was, so I was just kind of curious.
I think
Thank
it's
you.
right at 20 is what I'm remembering.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. All right, looks like we need to go into Board of Ambulance.
Mr. Chairman, motion that we enter into the Board of Ambulance.
You might stay for just a second.
Okay.
Listen to part of this.
I'd be glad to.
You're talking about Chubbuck and...
Absolutely.
Hi, thanks for having me here.
Oh, we got a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Shane Blow. I'm the Assistant Chief of the Pocatello Fire Department. I'm here on behalf of Ryan O'Hearn, who is our chief. I came here because the Bannock County Ambulance District is seeking authorization to execute a capital purchase. We would like to purchase a Zoll X-Series cardiac monitor/defibrillator. Right now, the City of Chubbuck's Fire Department uses an AED or an automatic external defibrillator. If we could purchase this monitor, it would be compatible. Well, we would give it to the Chubbuck Fire Department. It would still be ours. They would house it.
We would loan it.
We would loan it. We would still maintain it and do that, but that would allow us some compatibility between our two services. Right now, they would put their AED on someone, and then when our paramedics got there, we peel their patches off and throw them away and put our patches on. If they had this monitor, we'd use the same patches, the same equipment, it's all compatible. It also allows us to, they can acquire a 12 lead and send it to the hospital before our medics even get there. It just allows for a better patient care and better transition from emergency services to hospital services. The cost of the monitor is $26,282. The funding source that we would like to use would be savings from the capital fiscal year 22 budget. We had budgeted $220,000 for an ambulance. We were able to obtain a grant through Idaho EMS for $140,000, and the ambulance ended up costing just under that at $216,700. That resulted in significant savings to the fiscal 22 capital line, and we would like to use this opportunity to enhance this EMS response in Chubbuck. The cooperative effort with Chubbuck Fire Department will help achieve that goal. So we would like to make that request.
And those numbers jive, Christie? Did I have
I'm
that?
not sure what we paid for the ambulance. I thought it was deferred until like December. But there is funds, yes.
Okay.
And that was my understanding.
And that's why
We didn't actually get the ambulance when we
This year.
was going to.
Yeah.
But,
We got an extension.
so this made available funds.
Yeah.
Chubbuck had tried to get a grant and was turned down. And so through this cooperation, we'd be able to provide a need to Bannock County people stationed in Chubbuck.
Yes, sir.
Okay. No, I read through this, I thought it was great.
We'll just need to put a asset sticker on that. And then you'll need to let us know that where that's going to be housed, that it's going to be housed in Chubbuck. And then when that ever moves, we just need notified because we track that asset.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the purchase of the defibrillator, is that right? Yeah, defibrillator as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I just wanted you to hear that as we were talking about this direction.
The cooperation with the emergency services folks in this area is actually immense, it really is, and it's the reason it works, is because there's that, we don't draw lines, well, we go here, we don't go there. So, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we exit the Board of Ambulance.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, Ryan.
Okay. Can you remind me? There's a number of things on the agenda that, okay.
This one's health fair.
So for the health fair, it's been a tradition that we've done a health fair for our employees every year around this time of year. And our tradition has also been to use the church across the street, because they've been very generous in providing their basketball gymnasium as a venue for us. And we've been notified that we're not going to be able to use that venue this year. And so, those of us that have been talking about it and trying to organize it, we've asked, I personally was hoping for somewhere where it's within walking distance from this location. So I've talked to the Department of Labor, tried to see if they'd let us use their conference room because they're nice and close, and been brainstorming, but we can't really come up with a venue within walking distance of the courthouse that would be sufficient for the health fair at the size and level that it has been. So options that I wanted to talk to you about that come to mind would be to kind of reduce the scope of it, maybe not have as many vendors, and try to use either this room or another room that the county owns that's close to here. Otherwise, maybe we have to have it in a location that people have to drive to, like up at but I'm not super excited about that option, but I wanted to let you know that we're struggling with this and seek your advice and recommendations on this issue.
Who's over at the public defender's office today? And the tenant in the bottom of that building is gone.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if we talked to the landlord there and just could use that bottom for one day, which might be an option. I don't even know how big it is, but or how it's set up underneath there. But
We could look into that.
Beam was in the bottom of that, so I'm not sure how that's set up, but we was there this morning, so that may be an option. And then I'm not opposed to having it up at the event center. I think that we've always preached health and taking care of our employees, and even if we have to have offices send people in groups or something, because, most of them are here, but there's people all over the county that have the opportunity and families to come and do that. So it's not just the employee, it's the family that goes with it. And if we have to have it up at the event center, I'm still willing to do that. I know it's a ways to drive, but
Plenty of parking.
yeah, there's plenty of parking.
Plenty of parking. And were you thinking of one of those annex buildings?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know that one of them's being used by, I believe, ISU for like a
There's a
Halloween
Halloween thing going on
lab.
there.
But maybe we can talk to the folks up there if there's.
We can maybe check with 4-H. I think it's B building that has the haunted Halloween lab.
Yeah, there's more than one building.
Ag office.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because if that's the direction,
It would take most of them into one end of the concessions area, right there by the grandstand.
Yeah. And just have it out in the open there,
just at the grandstands.
underneath the
Underneath
grandstand.
the
Yeah.
grandstand. And if them options don't work, if we can't get people to do that, we still have to do the shots, the blood and stuff, and we can do that here on that corner right over here.
And we're not already have that going.
We've already done that.
Yeah, so.
Mhm. But I don't know, it's always been a good deal over here. I think that it's been a good atmosphere,
Yeah.
and people have enjoyed the opportunity. And like I say, family members are able to come down and do it too.
Okay.
And there is plenty of parking.
So,
I agree. There's that guy that owns the other church that's up there, that they do their,
The Baptist church?
Yeah.
In the corner? Just,
I guess I could ask them too.
who owns, what's that guy's name?
Roger Bray?
That's what I thought.
no, Roger.
No, he's right there.
The one right
Over there.
across the park.
Across the, across the park.
The one that was
It's,
That's where
yeah, it's,
Roger and them have their meetings.
Mountain View or?
I think I have that guy's card in my office.
I don't know how big that is.
I don't know how big it is either, but I know,
Even the one right here, even Roger Bray's, well, there was a time when we had to vacate the courthouse area and we were in that basement over there. So it wasn't
Yeah.
horribly sized. It might work.
Couple options.
There's some suggestions.
Okay.
We'll see what-
So maybe try those other churches and the Sterling Building, and if those don't work out, go to the event center, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, we can do that.
And St. Anthony's, the Catholic Center down here, they have a gym out back that they might be willing to let us use for a day. I don't know how much they use it this time of year, but they do have a pretty good sized gym out back that has back access. That could potentially be another option.
Right, and we could try, I mean, really, I think we were lucky to be able to use that church.
yeah.
As long as we did, I was kind of shocked that they let us. But, yeah, we'll try. So, sounds good. That, I needed that direction, and I received it, so thank you.
Okay, all right. Looks like
Wes and Jerry.
Wes.
Good afternoon.
Come on up, Jerry.
Come on up, Joe.
Just in case there's questions.
I've got Joe McGuire here with me and Jerry Staggs from the Southeast Iowa Council of Governments. What you have in front of you is that contract to do the project management work and oversee the contractor in the field for the fuel reduction projects. That'll be the Smith, Gulch, and Cottonwood. That's being funded by the Iowa Department of Lands.
Okay.
And it's taken us quite a while to find a contractor. We had to bribe him in with cotton candy and things from after the fair, but we're lucky to have him.
Good. If it's just cotton candy, that's easy to make.
No, I read through this and I was excited. Fits within the scope, and this is a reimbursement, so we'll have to pay him and then we get reimbursed for that, so. Now, how quick can you get the RFP written for the work?
We can get going right away as soon as we get approval. I'm ready to get going, I'm excited.
Okay, well then, given that, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the contract. Have you had a chance to review this, Brian? I'm assuming you had.
Yeah, I'm going to come through, yes.
Sorry. It didn't
There's a lot to come through, so.
It didn't look out of whack to me, so. Okay, I make a motion that we approve the contract as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
While Joe's here, do you want him to sign the contract too, or?
Yeah, that's fine.
If that gets him starting the RFP faster, that's great.
Come on up there.
You got a pen?
And then attest it, I don't know if that would be you, probably. All right, Jason. Say they watched us do it.
There you go.
All right.
Thank you all for your work to get us to this point in time. It's been a team effort.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, Steve, let's see. 20. We're within our time limits. We're good.
Well, I'm Steve Herzog, Bannock County Prosecutor. I think we're here on two different kind of items. The first one is I'm seeking permission to fund Don Farew's current position as a part-time victim witness coordinator. To fund that, the grant lapses the end of the month, and fund that through whatever the line item was for our unfilled new attorney position. I think it's 402-402.10. And how much is he currently paid, Christie? Do you?
I didn't look at his current hourly, but to fund him for the year would be $20,017. And so what Steve and I talked about is that if this was approved, then we would delay the hiring of that attorney until January 30th of '23. And then he could fund that position and still have...
Given everything you got going on in your office, how does that make you feel to have to delay one till January?
There's no applicants.
Okay, I just wanted to ask. I knew that was the case, but it's just...
Yeah, I think it's very unlikely that we're going to fill all of our attorney positions by that date.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we pull money out of this other area to fund this person. And because we do this with a lot of grant positions and a lot of places, when I sign that salary rate approval form, it says that they're hired as long as there's funds. How does this affect, not just your office, because I got to worry about how it affects other offices if somebody comes in and asks the same thing, you know? How?
This could potentially, depending on how you decided to set it up, Steve could make this a one-year conditional employment pending funding for FY24.
That's what I'm anticipating doing at this point,
Okay.
is that it's a one-year deal.
Okay.
The other option would be I would need to look further if we could move that money, if we could write a check from, say, the prosecutor's budget and then move it into that grant just to keep them there, but it would be essentially a wash with the overall effect if you had them sign that this is only a one-year funded position because it is new. It'd probably be the same as putting it in a grant, right? Just because...
Well, two separate things, though.
Right, but just because it's funded within the prosecutor's budget doesn't guarantee it to be there in '24, right?
Correct. Yep.
Which is probably your concern.
I like that, because then that gives us an automatic trigger when we get a year from now that we got something going on.
Yeah, as I thought about it, we just have a lot of salary rate approval forms that come before us, and it says funded,
Yes.
and if there isn't any funds available, then, so I don't want this to become a practice in all the different departments of, well, I'm gonna find some extra money for this guy for, no, if things are funded through a grant, we've got to have the understanding that when the grant's done, the money's gone too.
Yeah, and that was certainly the understanding with Don in that position, was that the grant may lapse. And the benefit to moving him into our office is that the grant restrictions on the work he could do are gone.
Okay.
He really couldn't involve himself in any felony cases through the grant, but if he's working for us, then he can do everything that Tamela does. And really, I think, provide her a lot of support that we could certainly use.
Okay.
And he's fully aware that the money may not be there
Okay.
beyond
23.
Yeah.
Just so that's in the stipulations. I mean, it's.
Do you want to make a motion on that?
And if I could mention something too, with some of these that I've seen, we may on the salary rate approval form put like an end date of because we have the job begin.
You won't need to do that.
And
Simply because appropriations lapse at the end of the fiscal year anyway, so if it's not funded next year,
then,
everybody's job could lapse at the end of the
okay,
year.
so there's an understanding of that. So
Right?
I don't know. So.
It depends funding. If we had to do cutbacks, say next year's property taxes, we're going to have to do reductions. We could do a reduction in force.
Right,
And then the funding would lapse. So
okay.
essentially, if the appropriation isn't there, and each position is appropriated on an annual basis.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. And then do we want to do some kind of, okay, if we have that, then I guess we don't need to. I was just thinking some kind of, we have that conditional offer of employment. I wonder if we want to put something similar to that together that stipulates, okay, this is going until this date. It's kind of like an appointment letter kind of thing. And what do you think about that?
I don't think that's a bad idea.
Okay? It just kind of puts them on notice, right, which is what I like. It's a good practice to do that.
Yeah, we've done it with others, so
Yeah.
I'd follow the same pattern.
That way everybody's on the same page and there's no,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then, if you approve this, I'll just do a reallocation to move the money from a full-time to a part-time and bring it back before the board next week.
Okay. Well, I'd make a motion then that we go ahead and agree with the prosecutor on this employee and move him from a grant to funds identified by Christie to pay this position for a year. Motion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, there's that one.
That was the easy one. The second item is that addressing retention and recruitment. We've got, when we're fully staffed, 12 attorneys in our office. Essentially, 9 of them do our criminal caseload. And Jason McCrill left. He was appointed the prosecutor over in Power County. Jason Stanley left to go to the public defender's office. Abe Luca's last day is the end of the month. He's going to the public defender's office. And it's likely Jonathan Radford is going to be going to Utah, where he get paid more and he has family. So that's not a for sure thing, but it's very likely. So that cuts us from 9 to 5. And unfortunately, Jonathan's the only other guy in our office who knows anything about the Downard case. So that's going to be on me for the indefinite future. And we've got a Confer homicide trial in January at this point that Brian's also on. But, you know, we can't afford to lose anymore. That's the bottom line. At some point, I mean, we can't do our job because the inflow isn't changing. I mean, we can change how we handle a case when it comes in. You know, if the police submit a request for felony charges, we can look at it and go, yep, that's a felony, and then sit on it. We have up to 5 years typically to file. But that's certainly less than ideal way to address the staffing problem, because witnesses move out of town and, you know, there's not an immediate consequence to defendants for their conduct. You know, that's far from ideal. And we're also looking at potentially certain drug charges, not charging them as felonies like we are now, and perhaps charging them as misdemeanors, like residue cases where you don't have a usable amount of meth or heroin or whatever, just charging as a misdemeanor. So it can, you know, we can kind of weed those out. That's kind of the low-hanging fruit. But, you know, we have had one applicant, and this is a bright spot, last Friday and afternoon, and he has some experience. He's a prosecutor out the tribe, has been for 3 years. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed he will accept the offer. He's kind of chewing on that. And certainly the COLA, you know, that kicks in the 1st of October is a good thing. But, you know, I talked to Braden, and I think the one tool, and I know they're certainly not looked upon favorably, are stipends. And, you know, like for a 1-year period, you know, we provide our prosecutors with a stipend, and it's done at the end of the year. And hopefully that would help keep people, and we could advertise that to help recruit people. Now, I also understand, you know, that there's this tension between the public defender's office and the prosecutors, that somehow we need to be the same. Well, we aren't the same now. They have twice the money, twice the staff. And, you know, this, it really comes down to a public safety issue, just like the jail staffing. you know, at some point, you know, I don't know what the sheriff intends on doing. If, you know, the numbers go up, staffing remains in the hole, what do you do? And it's kind of the same for us. At some point, our community suffers, so I would just ask that the commission consider some kind of a stipend arrangement to hopefully keep the good people we got now and hopefully attract some more applicants. So I think Braden has done a little bit of kind of background on this, and I might invite him to make a comment.
So I got with Christie and Ryan and just trying to put together a feasible package for what we could do as far as stipends or even added vacation days for once we have more applicants or do get more staff or are able to retain staff. The caseloads are more manageable for these guys. I know we could go the ARP route if everybody was okay with that. I don't know how much we would have there, how much you guys would want to do as far as stipends, but that's something we could do, especially if it is only a year. You know, Chrissy and I did run some numbers, and depending on if that's the route we do go, what is it, 3 years, we may be able to potentially use that until we can piece something else together.
Possibly. You could probably get ARPA, for 3 years.
Potentially 3 years. No, at least for the full year that they're.
At least 2.
At least 2, but at least the one that we're really hoping to get the money flowing and stop the bleeding for retention.
Everybody knows how I feel about stipends. I mean, I hate them. I hate it 100%. How do you give a person extra funds monthly for a year and then take it away? I mean, it just, you're prolonging, to me, somebody deciding, well, I got my $1,200 or $12,000 and now I'm gone. I mean, it's a tough situation. I understand it 100%, but it's just something that I hate so bad. It's just.
It really bit us this year.
It did.
It did.
So, I need a proposal. I mean, I need to have you tell me how much you're talking. I need the 95% to even have an inkling of thinking about it.
She has the numbers.
Yeah.
Do you want to present it?
Go ahead.
So if we did $1,000 a month and we just did worst case scenario, 12 attorneys, that would be $12,000 per employee a year, $144,000 total, not counting benefits. If you were to incorporate the public defenders who also have attorneys, that would be 16 more stipends, which would be another $192,000. So for 1 year, it would be $336,000 plus benefits, because we would have to pay benefits on it. It would be eligible for retirement and FICA Med.
Let me just throw this out too. This isn't a local problem. I talked to the Twin Falls County prosecutor a few days ago and asked him how his staffing issues were. He goes, we're down 3, no applicants, and the public defenders are down 5 in Twin as well. And the AG's office, the last time I checked, I think they had 8 deputy attorney general positions that are unfilled and have been for a long time. Which means if we have a tax fraud or an insurance fraud case that they normally would step in and take care of, they go, we can't do it, but you're more than welcome to do it. I'm like, well, that's yeah, great. That's so it's an across the board problem.
And if I may, the salaries for the attorneys, I don't think they're going to go down again, right? I mean, the nature is always going to be just going up, right? And so a stipend is a temporary Band-Aid. I think some ideas for more permanent solutions would be something we probably should start thinking about too, in my mind, you know, and you know, I don't have it 100%, but something I had pitched quite a while ago is we have our deputy prosecutors and our senior deputy prosecutors, you know, and there's maybe some more work to do with this, but we could maybe have one on a lower end that could be like a staff attorney type thing that may not have a license yet, that we could get someone that can be helpful, and when they finally get their license, like it's a feeder for attorneys, right? So someone come on the bottom end, and then also if we stretch it on the top end, we might, you know, have an attorney at a higher grade that they can climb to, so that ladder and progression helps with retention too, if they have something to look forward to and move up. So it's going to take money either way, but those are more permanent solutions than the stipend that maybe we can't decide on in this meeting, but I want to throw that out there, that we probably should look on past the horizon of this year too.
But that's something that honestly we've been asking out of your office for a while. Is what's the pay plan, and what are we going to do, and how are we going to do it? So
Yeah.
that's supposed to be coming forward here pretty quick.
Okay, yeah.
And that's why throwing in stipends messes up everything that you're doing right now.
It does, and my recommendation was going to be for FY24. I don't know if that's going to be too late.
Well,
It's too late for right now, today. You know, this is in the same vein. Ashley with D6 was in here today talking about her people, and stipends are, it's hard because where do we draw the line of, okay, yes, yes, no, no, yes, no. It's really hard. The more people they have and can retain, the more revenue they bring in. And so that's kind of a hard catch-22, but she'll be asking for stipends.
I got a suggestion there.
Yeah, I know. I think this and the jail are the most critical positions in the county that we have to figure something out.
Well, I was just talking to Braden and said, well, I mean, the opposite of this is maybe we take a step back instead of looking at doing the $1,000 stipends and reassess moving the 16s to 17s, 17s to 18s, but then we're going to be topping out, making grade adjustments mid-year. And then that definitely obligates future years when you start changing grades, whereas the only benefit to the stipends from a budget standpoint, not an employee standpoint, but from a budget standpoint, is you're not obligating future dollars. If we changed grades, that would definitely obligate future dollars. And next year is what worries me, because we don't know what the market's going to do. Houses might take a dip. We may not be able to get the property tax dollars we're getting this year with the same levy rate, which will be a hard decision for that board.
But I think it's what we need to look at.
Jeff?
I feel your pain, but the discussion as a whole irritates me because I don't know if we're looking outside of the box for potential solutions to the problem. You're right, it's a problem everywhere. We're not the only ones feeling this pain, but I just keep going back to money doesn't solve it all the time, and there's got to be other things that we can do somewhere. Maybe it's a combination of we get with the police departments and the judges and figure out some tweak we can do to our justice system here to help ease the caseload burden. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you, and that's why it's frustrating to me, because there is no clear answer, because I hate just throwing money at the problem because I don't think it solves the problem. And so that's where my frustration with this whole discussion lies. So I wouldn't mind if we could have a couple more days to think about it and look at it. I'm like Christie, I really stress over obligating future funds with the pay grade adjustments, because that messes up a lot of things that we're doing. So I hate to do the government thing and kick the can down the road another week or so, but I just would like a little more time to think about it. I know you've been working on it, but I haven't had a lot of time to mull it around. But that's the thing that frustrates me is I just don't feel like we're looking at the easy solution, but is it the right solution to cure it on a long-term basis? And I don't know the answer to that. I wish I did, because I could make a lot of money.
Yeah, and I don't envy your jobs.
Well, and you guys will all be in IEC next week.
Yeah, in fact, that'll be a discussion, I'm leading the commissioners' discussion, I can bring it up there, but that's one of the discussion points we can talk about is,
See what everybody else is
Funding that.
doing, see what ideas they have, maybe some epiphany will pop up through networking with the prosecutor and the clerks and the commission.
And honestly, I'd like this group that's here, I'd like the numbers emailed to us so that we kind of have them thoughts as we, like I say, we just received everything just now. And I'd like to be able to mull through them a little bit. And then, we're going to be invoicing next week. Next Friday will be our next meeting, I believe. So we'll have it on the agenda again then. That's not a definite answer right now and stuff, but...
I really didn't expect, you to make a decision today, because this is a big ask. And it is something I'm sure you need to think about, and, everyone who's involved with it, but I just wanted to make sure you were aware of kind of where we're at and what I'm worried about.
And I guess my question is how did you come up to $1,000 a month?
That was just kind of a ballpark number that we had kind of brainstormed, given where their pay level is now compared to people who are in other counties or even private sector. It seems like a lot of private sector is starting much higher, obviously, but they're starting much higher at a much earlier age too. And that was just something that we kind of threw around just for retention's sake.
Okay,
So,
and that's something we can look at a little bit too, because that's where I want to compare a little bit of, okay, what's the brackets? Where's everybody at, and where would it compare? And then, say next year, what percentage of an increase can we give? We give a 7% this year, and we can't do that next year. I'm just saying that we can't do that year after year after year, and so we got to have something, if it's going to be a stipend that is comparable to what we would end up giving in a COLA next year. Otherwise we're pulling monies away and stuff, and we're in the exact same boat.
And the grade difference would be 9%.
9%?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can take me out of the 12.
Okay.
Don't include me in that.
I figured if I did rough estimates that I would just go high. But I will take you
I
out.
appreciate it.
And we appreciate that, but we also have to honor you too. I appreciate all of them efforts, but we have to look at the whole picture, and you're going to be replaced one day, and so how do you compensate somebody to want to run for a position too?
you can't replace Steve.
Well, I'm just saying, we got to look to the future too in that category.
I might stagger to the end of my term yet.
I'm just saying that you can't just drop people off. You got to keep looking at everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. All right, Kyle, looks like you're up.
I'll get with you later.
Thanks for your help, Christine.
All right.
Good afternoon, everybody. Kyle Burmester, Bannock County Public Works. What I have before you today is a qualified reporting entity agreement. So this agreement's through us and Idaho Power. We have to have somebody that can certify. We use that Regis program for our renewable energies that we're going to be selling them credits. We do have good news that they're kind of moving faster with that, so we're looking at maybe even closer to the end of November, maybe being able to get going with selling them. But this is part of that, is what happens is we have the amount of power that we produce each month, but then we have to go give our numbers to Idaho Power. We consolidate, make sure that they're correct, they certify them, and then they pay us. Well, with this Regis program, we have to have somebody to certify them, so they usually have the entity or the utility that you sell to certify them. So this is just saying that they can put our information on this Regis program to guarantee the amount.
The only question that I had on this, Kyle, was I was trying to find it, looks like it went through 2035 or 2034.
Yeah, and it's a 60-day out kind of thing. I don't think our power agreement goes that long.
That was kind of my concern, is that seemed excessively long compared to what I thought our selling agreement was.
I mean, it'd be nice if we were locked into Idaho Power that long, but I don't really know where they came up with that date, Idaho Power. I just looked, when I see now, I just looked at, and maybe
Yeah, December 31st, 2034, but you can get out with a 60-day written notice.
Both sides.
Yeah, both sides.
And with this, it's just that all of it is that information. So if, and also inside the contract is only when we're selling these renewable energies, so there's kind of a little bit of leeway there. So I mean, the biggest thing I could see is if you wanted to stop it, that they were reporting this to Regis, it'd be $10 a month and you'd be out $20 for 2 months waiting to have it shut down.
Right. And then do you know what the meter and telemetry equipment fee would be by any chance? Or did I miss that in there?
So
we have an initial setup fee of $70, but what's the
$10? I think there's a couple little electronic parts that we have to put on the generator, but it was like $100 or something like that.
Okay. Well, I'm okay with this if you are.
I am.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the QRE agreement as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
All right. Shanda.
Just want to thank you for 1 second.
Good afternoon, Shanda Crystal, Purchasing and Economic Analyst. I have 3 items before the board today. The first I want to start with was a draft of the winter road salt invitation to bidding. We were thrown quite a curveball a couple weeks ago. Normally in the past, we wait for this date to bid out road salt, and then we contact that company and ask to piggyback off of that. This is the first time in forever that they said no. So Kyle and his crew got together with me, scrambled and put together we have to go out to bid ourselves. We're anticipating somewhere in the realm of $110,000, $120,000 purchase over the next little bit. So this is time sensitive, as we do need to get in line for deliveries to come. This is the first time that we've done an ITB for road salt, but if you had any questions or concerns, we'd be happy to walk through them with you.
We're also looking at, the state does a lot of their bids around March, April, 1st of April. We're going to look into next year trying to get some of these things done at that point in time. The reason for it is just with the prices this year. I would think some of it's kind of going down, but they bid it in the spring and they don't want to honor that. They want a little more money for their salt, so they don't want to honor it with anybody this year.
Is there any requirement that they have to?
So I went and looked on the state code. I was hoping that there was something that the state had put in there. It just says that we are allowed to. So there's nothing that says, most vendors, right, are more than happy, they've already done all the legwork, they're more than happy to sell more, but in this instance,
Yeah, every meeting I've been to that talks about this, talks about piggybacking, that's why.
and we can,
Well, I've only seen it a couple times where they don't want to do the exact same thing, but it's very seldom, but these have been kind of a weird year, so.
and we do have the opportunity, like Kyle mentioned, when we go to do it in the spring, to combine. We can get with Power County, we can get with, being on people around us, we can combine our totals. If this is going to be an ongoing thing that they're going to not allow us, and they are kind of the only name in the game too, which makes it difficult. We do anticipate them being we're hoping, crossing our fingers for another to come bid, but we're limited to where we can get this out. But we could have more buying power if we combined with other counties next year out.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the invitation to bid as presented.
Yeah, motion, all in favor, say aye.
All right, I do have, so your copy, I think, says draft on it. Can I get you guys to sign this one? Oh, that's something else. Sorry. We'll talk, that's the PNP. Yes, sorry, that's the PNP contract, which I also.
One invitation to bid. Winter road salt.
Sorry, there are 3 things in, well, there's 2 in your package.
There's that one.
Does it say draft? Okay. The second item I have, now that that is approved, we do need to put it in the paper. It is a formal bid, and so I do have a publication notice if the board would sign here. The last item I have before the board, last time we met, we talked about the project management professional services contract, and that has been submitted to us. There's a couple things I wanted to point out, and it has been through legal. Legal had an adjustment, so I do have a new one for you to sign with me.
Good deal.
But that contract that you do have before you does give us a little leeway. I mentioned to the company how difficult it was for departments to commit resources, employees to attend this training, which we would want to. However, without having the contract, I couldn't set the dates. Without setting the dates, it's very difficult for employees to commit and say, yes, I will be available those dates. So that's what that front box, it still has the ranges, 10 to 19. They did highlight our 20. I said that's what the board had currently committed to was 20 students available, but then they did give us the tiered pricing. If we do have, once we set that date, if we have additional ones come, right, there will be an opportunity to have an additional conversation about adjusting. We'd obviously have to pay for every person that attended, but it gives us a little bit of flexibility. Items that legal wanted to adjust was that this one that I have before me says that if there is legal issues that need to be fought, it will be fought according to the state of Idaho laws, as well as they wanted to use our logo on their website, and we felt, and talking with legal, that we wanted an additional ask. If they do want to put us out there for whatever reason, we want them to get with Emma, we want that to go through our PIO, so we have them remove that paragraph as well.
Okay.
But if the commission agrees, I've got that ready to be signed. Once this is signed and back to the company, that's when I can start nailing down dates. I've asked the city of Chubbuck to give me a couple of availabilities of the building that we would like to use. So then once we know that, we'll be able to then coordinate with the departments to have a final yes or no, right, if their employees are able to attend.
Did you identify where the funds were coming from for this?
Oh, so that was another. So Christy did have felt that the operations budget could handle the whole thing. Commissioner Moser had asked the departments to look and see if there was some funds that they could put towards it, depending on who. The departments that did respond back to me said they had money within their 2022 budget to pay for these to go, but there was still not a final where and when and So that is to be determined as well.
Okay, so it's coming from potentially a multiple of sources, budget, or individual departments and operations?
Operations
just
to cover the full thing.
We have money left in this year to do that?
In 22, yes. 23, probably not, but
Okay.
22, yes.
Let's get her done. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the training contract for project managers as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sheriff. Do you know what you're here for? Nope. The GED. Oh, yeah, okay. Teresa, Sheriff's Office.
That was just a contract, we had legal review to supply a GED instructor in the jail. It's not costing anything to the county, it's being paid through commissary. That was just an information packet, more or less,
So it is still costing the county, just through
through commissary.
different reasons.
Right. Well, yes.
Can't slip nothing by, buddy.
Nice try.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the independent contractor for GED services contract as presented.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, next we have
Good job, Sheriff.
Bannock County Board of County Commissioners quarterly jail inspection, fourth quarter. Just a yes, we got it, and approve it.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we accept the quarterly jail report as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next we have resolutions. There's resolution number 202270, which is approving 2022 salaries. Resolution 2022-71, August 22 alcohol licenses. Resolution number 2022-72, tax cancellation request. And resolution number 2022-73, authorize and order to reallocate funds.
Mr. Chair, on resolutions number 2022-70, -71, -72, and -73, I make a motion that we approve them as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Don't have to have much of a curve.
I don't. I can just fire it out right now. Did we vote on that?
Resolution?
We did? Okay.
Next, we have signature only. We have one that is modification to grant or agreement and annual operating plan. Grant award document, Idaho Power Safety Communications Commission, and then the telephone system maintenance agreement. Do you have anything to say about that one?
We looked at it, they've combined it the way we asked them to combine it. It's within our budget, and it's allocated, it's good to go. And then the Idaho Public Safety Communications Commission did award us the grants that we asked for, which we got bought into with that resolution last October for the additional 911 fee, and we were awarded those grants as well.
Just my signature.
Just yours? Okay, good.
Maybe more than one. Just one on that one.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we sign the modification of grant or agreement on the annual operating plan, the grant award document to the Idaho Public Safety Communications Commission, And the telephone system maintenance agreement with Business Phone Services as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Did you want to talk about the youth football league, or?
Yeah, we'll talk. It's
That's why,
next one on in my paper.
that's why I didn't say it, just making sure.
Okay. And then we have a contract and agreement. Braden, you want to talk about that?
With the U.S. Forest Service?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the modification of the annual operating plan and the grooming agreement, just basically extending what we had previously in place.
I
did say that one.
Yeah, okay. But we're ahead of schedule from last year.
We are, a couple months.
Look at us go. Moving at the speed of something.
All right, the other one that was on there, just for signatures, we've had Bannock, or had youth football, Southeast Idaho youth football come in. Before, there's still some things on the contract that I don't really like.
And I was looking at that, and I agree that there are no dates on here, and we should have dates.
And he sent us an updated one, but where is it? Has some dates,
Oh, okay,
and that's new,
okay.
but it doesn't have any times.
I'm not worried about the time as much as I am the dates.
And then this one says, first right to rent facilities is identified in term number 6, and that has nothing, it says nothing about the building.
The shed?
But 11 says that they shall have use of the shed throughout this contract. I myself don't feel like they've, if you go back to this other section, I don't feel like they've acted in good faith, honestly. So,
Well, with them putting the dates in, I'm okay, and I understand 11, because we did not, I don't believe we did ask them to clear their stuff out at the end of the season, so that was the trade, buying the shed for the ability to store stuff in there. So I'm okay where we're at now with the dates included on there. If you want to send it back, or want me to make a motion?
well, have you looked this over? The contract? And this is one where they're trading the shed to us for 2 years worth of use of the fields, of the shed, of, the shed is 12 months a year, the fields are during the football season. Originally, when that come to us, it didn't have any dates on it, and I wouldn't sign that. But my concern is, we had another group that had a shed on our facility. We required them to move their shed off, and they no longer come and use our facility. And I feel like with Little League football, that we're catering. We've got a different set of rules for them. The other thing that, and I guess I could probably live with it for 2 years, but I feel like maybe we need to put them fields out for bid. That if soccer wanted to use them, if somebody else, that they have the same opportunity to come in and utilize them fields in 2 years. And so that first right of refusal, I don't like. Because in 2 years, I'd like to say that we just, like I say, we put it out to bid. We've had Friday night lights that have come and says, well, you guys need to put lights up. Well, we're not charging the full fee right now on any of these fields for improvements. Well, there's got to be some way to charge people that are using the facility to be able to improve them, to make them what we want them to be in the future.
I agree. I agree.
So that's why I have a tough time locking in for 2 years, but I really have a tough time locking in for more than 2 years at the first right of refusal.
Well, that's not how maybe I'm interpreting that incorrectly, that the 2 years, but after that, the right of first refusal goes away. It's during those 2 years, they get that. Am I interpreting that correctly or
Number 6,
incorrectly?
the right of first refusal, this contract covers usage of the following, and it doesn't say anything about the shed in number 6.
Right.
So it just says first right of refusal. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean in 2 years they have the first right to turn everything down and we can't offer it to somebody else?
That's not how I interpret it, but I'm not the legal mind in the room.
So this is, at least with the first right of refusal language, I believe this is my first time looking through it, but looking at the term, it looks like they're talking about the fields, and usually the first right of refusal, it's if there's the time comes that, if someone wants to rent them.
During that same time period.
Right, you go to them first. But this could be something that needs flushed out.
Well, I'd like to hold off on it and let Brian review it, since he hasn't looked at it, and wait for his counsel, if that's all right.
I'm okay with that.
Okay?
Can you keep this down?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can send you a new one. I think that's
That
the
shed
old
business seems messy to me still, too.
Well, and I actually talking with Scott, he just did not have the shed. And then, as soon as it becomes ours, then we need to take their locks off and put our locks on, because we have access to it anytime we want to. And then I still do not like the location of it. And so then it becomes our responsibility to move it. Well, according to this, what happens if it falls apart when we move it? Or do we have any obligations? That's just some of the questions I have with this.
Good question.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
All right. Next, we have alcohol license permits. Or just the consent agenda. There's a lot of stuff in there. Alcohol licenses are becoming huge. We have minutes for August 30th, September 1st, 6th, 7th, 8th. And we have a couple of salary rate approval forms.
Mr. Chair, make a motion that we approve the salary rate approval forms and the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And you sign yours. All right. Next, we have a meeting to discuss on-call time and pay potential action items. And I don't know if that's what everybody's here for, but this is where I want Ryan to present to us what was discussed the other day, so it's not a big meeting like we had last time.
Okay.
We need to start developing a policy, and so I want the input that you guys give to Ryan. So Ryan, you're up.
Okay. I'm pulling it up really quick. I sent a copy to Braden earlier. Were you able to distribute, or? I didn't ask you to, so it's okay if you...
No, I didn't.
Okay. So...
Can you send that to me real quick, Ryan?
I can.
Oh, I got one. Thank you.
Oh,
You have shared, right?
I got these.
okay. So, we made some progress, I believe, on what started out with just a conversation and process used was, we started with information and feedback from our department heads and some good discussion. We also, in HR, took a look at a bunch of procedures from other organizations and literature from Department of Labor and did a deep dive into the literature on some case studies and other things and found some common ideas in policies from a number of places, right? And so I put together a very rough draft. We brought it together to a meeting on Monday and chiseled off some of the edges, and I believe what before you is the procedure that we've come up with. If you look at the 1.0, we're talking about having a standardized procedure that everybody falls under, right? So we're not picking and choosing which departments get this, right? So it's going to be for everybody. The next part defines a on-call with pay status. Now this would be a new thing for the county, and the essential idea for it would be if we have an employee that we are asking to inconvenience their life by having to be within 1 hour of the work site, they or have access to a remote workstation. If they don't come in, they could be disciplined. They're limited on being able to drink alcohol. So we have some inconveniences or limitations to their freedom. It's not to the point where it would be classified as work, but it's enough inconvenience where we'd like to pay them something for it, right? And what we had talked about is for every day that they're on a on-call status, where the supervisor says, okay, you're locked in, you're in this on-call status, that they would get an hour of pay for that. We'd call it on-call pay. And it'd be at the same rate of pay that they would make normally for their job. And so we could give them a little bit of something to say thank you for, being ready to go for us in this type of situation. Okay. We also had discussed callback pay. So if someone did get called in and they had to come back and do some work for us, that we would let them count it as 2 hours worth of work, even if in fact that it didn't take 2 hours to complete that work, just because again of the inconvenience of being called back in to the work site. So those are the main features and main ideas behind it. So on that page 1, and then there's a page 2 where it gives some examples and some of the mindset behind it. But with that said, do you have some questions or ideas?
So just plain and simple, without all the dialogue. You're on call, which means you're expected to be within an hour's worth of reporting time for the job. And for every day that you are on that, you get 1 hour's worth of pay.
Yes.
Okay? And then if you do get called in, you get a minimum of 2 hours pay, but that time starts when you arrive on a job and when you time clock out off the job.
Exactly.
And if you do it from home, if you're able to do it from home, then it's the time you start work at home and the time you get off.
Exactly. Yes.
Without a minimum of 2 hours there?
Correct.
Okay. And then the callback part, I mean, that's the same for everybody anyway, right? Doesn't matter if you're on call, off call, or whatever. If you get called into work, you get paid when you come back to work. So that's one that is that,
Well, when you're in that on-call status,
okay, are you talking about,
so like if you're getting called in, yeah, like you're in that on-call status and they call you in, then it would be the 2 hours. Right. If you're not in the on-call status and, you know, you get, I guess it wouldn't matter, so it doesn't apply,
okay,
so.
okay.
Yep.
So you're saying that if you're on call, and then I guess the other part about it is you get the 2 hours, and then any other work that you are required to do, if it's longer than 2 hours, you get that compensation, and then you have the added hour because you're on call.
No. Okay, yes.
So you would get a minimum of 3 hours if you're called in.
Yes, in that situation.
But after 2 hours, you start adding more hours to, more time, more money to your.
That's right, right. So if you're in on-call status for that day, it's an automatic hour. If you get called in, it'll be at a minimum of 2 more hours. But if you work for like 3 hours, then it's gonna be that 1 on-call hour plus those 3. Yeah.
Okay. And then, as you're writing this up, is this going to be part of the examples? Going to be part of all this?
The administrative notes, I was thinking of having separate from the actual procedure. And this was more just as a guideline for us and for training purposes.
And that's, I like that. I don't like examples in a policy because policies and people change so much that, well, you don't fit this example, so you don't get it, or you do get it. I don't like that type of an argument that we put out there.
Yeah.
I like the policy by itself.
Yeah.
I struggle with the task by phone. Who's going to spend an inordinate amount of time on the phone if you're on call? How much time do you spend?
Depends on when Jason calls me.
She's not on call.
Yeah, she's not on call.
Yeah.
She's at my beck and call.
But the on-call is assigned by the supervisor.
It depends, because we did talk to probation, and probation has some instances when they may have to go in and deal with certain situations to be, not necessarily on their phone, but on their phone, doing orders, I think was Ebby's example.
And they'd be both on the phone and
on device, potentially.
Okay, I was defining that more narrow than just talking to somebody, not actually working on the phone. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you're just requiring them to be on call via phone and not keeping them around in a certain geographical area, that could have an effect on this as well.
And that's a good point, because then maybe what we need to do is they just need to clock their time that they worked by phone, but they're not restricted, so they may not be on call for
Right, that's what I'm saying, they wouldn't be restricted.
And in my mind, that would fall under our piece where we talked about approved workstation, right? So it could be all you need is the phone, right? Or it could be you need a larger setup, but if you're...
So if I'm not required to be at a workstation, but I am required to carry the phone, the office phone for example, I could go wherever and be wherever, but if I'm in charge of that phone, then I get the 1 hour of pay for the day because I'm technically on call, because I have the office phone.
If you're put on that on-call status, yeah. So there's going to be a difference, though, of like the de minimis use thing, right? Where if it's like just a 5-minute...
De minimis.
If it's just a little 5-minute answering a text.
I'm going to name your phone to minimis.
Well, I think this is a good start. I think that there's some other questions that still need to be answered. Maybe a little bit separate from on-call. And I've commented to you before, everybody that's on 10-hour shifts, they get 20 hours more holiday pay every year. We don't have a 10-hour holiday pay schedule. We have an 8-hour holiday pay schedule. And so there's some things that are going to come up that people are not going to be happy with, but we're going to have some policies on holidays.
And I would see that as an entirely separate issue, I think. Right?
Except that a lot of them in this same group are on them 10-hour shifts.
Sure.
Which causes some of the problems.
So you guys all back there okay with this direction?
Yeah, and I think it's more, some of those questions are more a management issue during the on-call.
One of the discussions that we did have on this was encouraging, when possible, if you're on call and you have that extra hour and can flex the schedule.
Yes.
To take time off at the end of the week, because most of the on-call that you're going to do is going to be the weekends when you're really going to get hit with hours, except in the 24/7 facilities, when they anticipate shift work. But anyways, to flex the time when possible, just to try to reduce, comp.
Can we add a statement like that to this so that it's clear that we're looking for, I mean, this is, I like where she's going with that, but I think if we just had a statement in here, we expect you to use flex time when possible instead of this, but if not, then this is the policy.
I mean, we could.
Just as Ernie said, the basis
Something
of
about
the
intent of trying to minimize overtime and comp time by using flex. But it's going to depend on department and situation too. So I thought about that.
I just think as faces change, it's nice to have a little bit of what the intent is and what the expectations are.
Well, and the other part about this is, I'd really like it to see it be paid in overtime. I don't want comp time, because comp time usually generates more overtime or more on-call responsibilities of people being off. And to compensate for somebody else.
Well, and that's what the comment of when possible,
The flex time,
off.
the flex time, I agree. But do you flex?
We don't have a budget to pay overtime because not all departments have overtime. Matt's department doesn't have overtime. IT does not have overtime. Kyle does. Sheriff does. But they really don't have overtime for staff. It's more for patrol or detention deputies.
But I think that's still part of the discussion that we have here.
Right, but I mean, as far as if you want to have it as paid, that would have to take effect in '24.
Well,
Because the
that's
public
what
departments.
As we're talking about the whole deal, it's.
One thing that we did not mention, and this maybe will help that, is we're going to set up 2 different pay codes. We're going to add an on-call pay code, so that when an employee is on call for that 1 hour, that's the pay code they're going to use. And then the other pay code we're going to set up as a call-out, so that we can track the time worked with that. And then that way, we'll be able to actually track and see how much time this is going to rack up on the department level, so that we can see, maybe it's not going to be very many hours, maybe it's going to be horrendous. But then that will allow us, hopefully within a 6-month, 6-month will be tough for some departments, but to gauge
Will be dated.
what the impact.
So this time, on comp time, time not worked, count towards overtime.
No.
So,
Time not
so if
worked.
you do flex time, then they could have 37 hours that week, and then get called out. So the first 2 hours wouldn't be overtime because it wouldn't be a 40 hour.
Okay.
So our work week is Saturday to Friday. So the bulk, and correct me if I'm wrong, the bulk of this call-out time is going to be normally Saturday, Sunday. You're going to have exceptions when probation's going to get called out at night. But if it can be managed to take time off on a Thursday or Friday, then that should lessen the impact
Yes.
of comp or overtime.
But as you're, perfect, thank you for explaining that. And your question, I answered incorrectly. So let's say that there's
a person that was working, every single, or on call every day of the week, right? So those 7 hours would count towards their total working hours that could go into overtime or comp time, that would, according to this.
So if I worked 7 hours a day and had 1 hour of comp time, then technically I could have my 40 hours for the week if I worked Monday through Friday.
Exactly, yes.
But then if I got called in Friday night, then that would send me into a potential overtime.
Yes, yes.
And we tried to run some scenarios with juvenile probation because you guys are on call for a week at a time. So we tried to run some of those scenarios. Tony's guys alternate, and Kyle's are just kind of all over the board. Evie's, you guys have one individual that's going to be a little more complex that we got to work on.
Yes.
I think that's, so I think for the most part, it'll be a work in progress to manage and to learn best practice, but I think it might not be bad.
I like the codes.
Right, in our discussion, there's a lot of, differences in the departments. They're just gonna have to manage it so that they're within budget, right? And within meeting the needs of the departments. But a lot of them we're talking about, we could flex and make it work for a bulk of this.
And then you'll have the random cases when you just can't help it, but you're going to have that even without on-call policy.
Right.
Because if somebody were to get called in, say the jail issue that we had, that 2 hours wouldn't have even touched anything. They have more time than that regardless, so.
Yeah, so I think we're pretty close.
I know talking with some of the captains that would affect their divisions, we talked about this, that on-call status when you get that hour. We even talked about, look, we know some guys get a phone call that may take them 10 minutes. And to me, we kind of discussed, that's still within that hour that you get for being on call. So I think management can really mitigate this and say, look, it was a 15-minute call, dude. You're still getting that hour of being on call. But if it exceeds that, so we're almost considering that hour like that's free time if you get a short call, and it's a done deal,
That's where I was going with my question on the phone call. That's what I was.
So I think management, as far as the department, they can manage that and mitigate and try to keep it down. I know that's going to be our goal, especially if it happens this next budget, is try to stay within the budgeted OT and 207K. So.
And maybe we do a trial of a month, see how it works, and then if we have to regroup and adjust because we didn't think of things, or...
I would say let's run it 90 days and come back and revisit it and make sure it's working. That should give you some ebbs and flows to see what's going on.
But we gotta get reports back.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get anything in our office on this. I don't know what you got in emails, but after the last meeting we had, we asked feedback and we received none. So I was gonna cancel this meeting today because there was nothing there. Nothing talked about other than what we talked about. So if Ryan hadn't had this meeting Monday, we wouldn't even be talking about it right now.
Yeah, and I got some few comments, but there was a lot of energy in the Monday meeting, so that was good. Yeah.
Positive energy.
Well, it was a productive meeting. It was a spirited discussion. It was a good one.
And all I'd say is that this is another one that next Friday we talked about. You just received it, I just received it.
I emailed it.
Yes, I got it.
We have that conversation next Friday. If we're going to put it into implement it for 90 days, that's when we do that.
Good. Well, and I appreciate just the discussion and the consideration of this. I think it's
Well, I appreciate you involving the group to come up
Yeah.
with something that would work, or at least give us a chance to work at something across the board, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I think could be a good thing.
Mr. Chair, before we end, on going back to the qualified reporting entity agreement, I don't know if I would make one suggestion still, like, if you want to sign it, go ahead, but we would just take off the hold harmless section, I think it's 11C, right?
Yes.
Kyle, on there. Just make a record of that, and then we can send it back to him with like a counteroffer.
Okay, Mr. Chair, make a motion that we accept council's advice.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. On the QR over here.
Thank you.
Yep.
With that being said, we are